buildings.
No cars.
No animals and no trees.
Nothing, just God, and he decides to get creative.
Now, the earth was formless and dark.
And on day 1, God said, "Let there be light!" And pop, it appeared. He then called the light day and the darkness night.
Day 2, God creates the sky.
On day 3, it starts to get really exciting.
God creates land and then covers it with loads of grass, plants, trees and bushes.
Day 4, he adds the sun, moon and all the twinkly stars.
And on 5, he fills the sea with fish.
And the air with birds.
Day 6, he makes all the animals.
Cows, sheep, rhinos, creepy crawlies, lizards, tigers, giraffes, monkeys.
Yes, I think they get the idea. He also made something very special, us humans.
On day 7, he puts his feet up and has a little rest.
A good job done.
When you ask who was the first woman on the earth, most people would say Eve. But according to the Jewish mythology, Adam's first wife was Lilith, and this is due to the two versions of creation. The first version, known as the Frizzly version, claims that man and woman were created in the image of God at the same time. But the second version, known as Yahwistic version, claims that the female is created from the male's rib. And because of the contradiction of these two versions, the ancient rabbi, also known spiritual leader or teacher, who studied the Hebrew Bible, believed that the Torah or the Hebrew Bible is the God word and does not contradict anyone. According to the myth, the first version referred to the Adam first wife, which is Lilith, while the second version referred to the Adam's second wife, which is Eve. And this is the myth about Lilith, the first wife of Adam, according to the Jewish mythology. Again, this is a mythology.
Do you know Israel, official state, or Hebrew, country in the Middle East, located at the eastern end of the Mediterranean Sea? It is bounded to the north by Lebanon, to the northeast by Syria, to the east and southeast by Jordan, to the southwest by Egypt, to the west by the Mediterranean Sea. Jerusalem is the seat of government and the proclaimed capital, although the latter status has not received wide international recognition. Any member of an ancient northern Semitic people that were the ancestors of the Jews. Biblical scholars use the term Hebrews to designate the descendants of the patriarchs of the Hebrew Bible. Old Testament, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, also called Genesis 33:28. From that period until their conquest of Canaan and Palestine in the late 2nd millennium before Christ era. People are referred to as Israelites until their return from the Babylonian exile in the late 6th century before Christ era, from which time on they become known as Jews.
Now, what known as Hebrew literature. It is the body of written works produced in the Hebrew language and distinct from Jewish literature, which also exists in other languages. Literature in Hebrew has been produced uninterruptedly from the early 12th century BC, and certain excavated tablets may indicate the literature of even greater antiquity. Hebrew literature is not synonymous with Jewish literature. Some Hebrew writings was produced by the Samaritans, and in the 17th century by Protestant enthusiasts. Periods under Hebrew literature: Ancient Hebrew literature, the Middle Ages, the period of retrenchment, the 8th and 9th centuries in modern literature in Hebrew. During the ancient Hebrew literature, all that is preserved is slightly more than 20 of the 39 books included in the Old Testament, the remainder being from the next period. There are biblical poetry like Psalms and folk songs that can be seen in the Songs of Songs. The earlier prose texts were still very close to poetry in structure and language. Parts of the biblical books of Ezra and Daniel and certain works among the Dead Sea Scrolls are in the early form of Aramaic.
The writings during the Middle Ages are liturgical prose, biblical lexicon, religious poems, and secular poetry. Hebrew culture, however, was reduced to a miniature scale in the West after the expulsion of the Jews from England in the year 1290, from France 1306, and from Spain 1492, the period of retrenchment. It continued in Italy, where it remained in contact with contemporary Christian thought. In this period marked the beginning of the Hebrew short story.
Apparently, that was the background and overview of Hebrew literature. Therefore, we can conclude that Hebrew is the language of the Bible, which is both a religious and cultural foundation of incalculable influence and specially read in the original language, one of the world's most dazzling literary achievements. Learning modern Hebrew is the simplest way into the Bible. Let's proceed to the analysis of a short story.
Short story is a work of short narrative prose that is usually centered around one single event. It is limited in scope and has an introduction, body, and conclusion. Although a short story has much in common with a novel, it is written with much greater precision. The advantage of making a short story is that we have to achieve a lot of story in only a few words. And short stories are also great for helping develop plot and pacing because the story is so short. You don't have to try and pace plot points out over. Reading short stories is just as important as writing them if you want to try and develop your writing skills. Every piece of writing advice ever will tell you that you need to read to become a better writer. I think that sometimes short stories are even better than novels to have developed your skills. Just as with writing short stories, reading them can help you get a feel for pacing and plot development. You can see how the writers weave together complete characters in such small spaces.
Let's have the elements of the short stories. First is setting. Is a description of where and when the story takes place. In a short story, there are fewer settings compared to a novel. The time is more limited. How is the setting created? Consider geography, weather, time of day, social conditions, and etc. What role does setting play in the story? Is it an important part of the plot or theme, or is it just a backdrop against which the action takes place? When was the story written? Does it take place in the present, the past, or the future? Or how does the time period affect the language, atmosphere, or social circumstances of the short story?
Second element is characterization deals with how the characters in the story are described. In short stories, there are usually fewer characters compared to a novel. They usually focus on one central character or protagonist. Who is the main character? Are the main character and other characters described through dialogue, by the way they speak? Has the author described the characters by physical appearance, thoughts, feelings, and interaction, the way they act towards others? Are they static but characters who do not change? Are they dynamic around characters who do change? What type of characters are they? What qualities stands out? Are they stereotypes? Are the characters believable?
Third element is the plot and structure. It is the main sequence of events that make up the story. In short stories, the plot is usually centered around one experience or significant moment.
Fourth element is narrator and point of view. Is the person telling the story? Consider this question. Are the narrator and the main character the same? By point of view, we mean from whose eyes the story is being told. Short stories tend to be told through one character's point of view. Who is the narrator or speaker in the story? Does the author speak through the main character? Is the story written in the first person, I, point of view? Is the story written in a detached third person, he or she, point of view? Or is there an all-knowing third person who can reveal what all the characters are thinking and doing at all times and in all places?
Fifth element is conflict. It is usually the heart of the short story and is related to the main character. In a short story, there is usually one main struggle. How will you describe the main conflict? Is it an internal conflict within the character? Is it an external conflict caused by the surroundings or environment the main character finds himself or herself in?
Biblical plays, poems, love songs, pantheistic, nature lyrics are some of the writings in the 18th and 19th century. Lastly, modern literature in Hebrew is the last period. Hebrew daily papers began to appear. In the state of Israel, where Hebrew had become the official language, literature developed on a large scale, mainly along contemporary Western European and American lines. The extreme diversity in the culture of parts of the population and the problems of new immigrants provided the main themes for fiction. Poetry flourished, but original drama at first was slow to develop. At the turn of the 21st century, Hebrew poetry remained innovative. Some poets addressed subjects previously considered taboo for Hebrew literature, such as homosexuality.
Sixth element is climax. Is the point of greatest tension or intensity in the short story. It can also be the point or even take a major turn as the story races toward its conclusion. Is there a turning point in the story? When does climax takes place?
The seventh element is theme. Is the main idea, lesson, or message in the short story. It may be an abstract idea about the human condition, society, or life. How is the theme expressed? Are any elements repeated and therefore suggest a theme? Is there more than one theme?
Last element, style. Style has to do with his or her vocabulary, use of imagery, tone, or the feeling of the story. It has to do with the author's attitude toward the subject. In some short stories, the tone can be ironic, humorous, cold, or dramatic. Is the author's language full of figurative language? What image are used? Does the author use a lot of symbolism, metaphors, comparison that do not use as or like, or similes, comparison?
Those are the elements of a short story. Once again, a short story is a work of short, narrative prose that's usually centered around one single event, and it has 8 elements. And those are setting, character, plot and structure, narrator, conflict, climax, theme, and style. For a better understanding, let's have a short story by the storyteller.
Last March 2020, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, while I am on my way to went home, I heard a news of uncertainty. A coronavirus that hitting the world with 100 cases. As I walk along the street, people are hardly walking, wearing a mask to cover their faces, and spraying on alcohol anywhere, anytime. As I drop in the house, my mother told me to take a bath in the lobby before going inside. The government imposed a strictly enhanced community quarantine, according to the news wherein all people will stay inside of their houses. All business are demanded to close. All vehicles except our frontliners emergency, and even the face-to-face classes were stopped. During that day and every day, I close my door and I stay in the darkest side. As I stay in the darkest side, I have seen and I have heard negativity. My parents lost their jobs. Everything inside the house are slowly missing. Until I found out I already lost myself in believing. I end up crying during night times, stunned every daytime, and slowly losing my interests and hopes. Sometimes I carry the things that what I heard inside and outside the house. I spent my time in social media thinking that Facebook, Messenger, Twitter, and other sites can help me to get away from the sadness that I am suffering now, but I was failed. As I spent my time through those social media sites, my emotions are getting sensitive and my feelings are getting heavier. I am very lazy and I am getting an anorexia activity. I am tired with everything. I hate myself for being unproductive, and there was a times that I want to end up my life that wasn't mine, a life that served as my greatest ode to the Lord. As I kneel down and close my palms and ask for an answer and guidance, I heard an answer that says, "My child, lay down in my arm. Be with me as who I am. Do not let the darkness covers you. Please go back to me as I am your Savior. Trust me as I am your Father. Stand still as I am your light and strength. Walk with me as I am your guide. Go back to me as I am your home. Lean on me as I am your shoulder. Do not worry as I am your God." Upon hearing this voice, I realized uncertainty made my family together. I make time with them. I cleared my vision on them. This time, I discover more about myself, that I can do more. I have my talent and I have my ability to do things I want to know. Therefore, this time of pandemic, prayer is the best weapon we can ever had. Because prayer provides great lights for us to stay in the brightest side. This is not my story, but our story.
As we end this video, let us remind ourselves that if we are seeking an answer, a truthfulness, a wisdom, a peace, a genuine happiness, a contentment, a pure heart, and pure knowledge, let's humble ourselves to seek those from the Bible, from the words of God. I know some of us here didn't want to kind of this topic, but let me remind you, we are nothing without a Creator. Maybe of this time, you are enjoying what the world tells you. But I am sure that we are here taking step by step and little by little, that we are all in our way to the Creator. Because according to Hebrews 11:6, and without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him.